Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is episode 179. Today's guest is a guy who's actually trained at CSP since before CSP existed in Florida. He's a Jupiter native, went to school here, and is now pitching in the big leagues. So it's a really cool story of long-term athletic development. And I think he's got a unique perspective on how our business evolved and the synergy that's taken place and all that. All around great guy and someone who definitely puts in the work. So it's cool to see his success, and he's going to share some of those insights today. This episode is brought to you by AG1, the most comprehensive NSF certified for sport daily nutritional supplement I've ever tried. With so many stressors in life, it can be difficult to maintain effective nutritional habits and give our bodies the nutrients they need to thrive. As a father of 3 young kids and a co-founder of multiple businesses in multiple states on top of still being an avid exerciser, I know that busy schedules can really take their toll on us. Whether it's poor sleep, exercise or life stressors, environmental factors, or simply not eating enough of the right foods, we can often wind up deficient nutritionally. This is where AG1 can really help. It's a game-changing nutritional insurance policy. They simplify the logistics of getting optimal nutrition on a daily basis by giving you just one thing with all the best things. That's why I use it daily, as do several of my family members, and we recommend it to a lot of our top athletes. One scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients that work together to fill the nutritional gaps in your diet to support energy, focus, digestion, and recovery. And this can all happen for less than $3 per day and without taking multiple products. While most nutritional supplements come to market and stay stagnant, AG1 continues to obsessively improve this one holistic formula based on the latest research, producing over 50 improvements in the last decade alone. They invest in the most absorbable and natural source of each ingredient and go above and beyond in third-party testing to ensure their customers continue to receive the highest quality and best tasting nutrition happen on the planet. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it'll work for you, and it contains less than 1 gram of sugar per serving. They put 75 ingredients through the rigorous NSF certification test to come up with a safe formula that's trusted by some of the world's top athletes, including many of our own at Cressey Sports Performance. Right now, AG1 is giving our listeners a special offer of 10 free travel packets with their first purchase. Just head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim this special offer. These travel packets are perfect for supporting your immune system, energy, and gut health while you're traveling for games, training, or simply on the go. They can be great counterbalance to the less than ideal on the road food options that are out there for a lot of our traveling baseball players. So if you want to bridge the gap between deficient and optimal and give yourself the best chance of getting nutrient diversity, head to drinkag1.com/Cressey to get 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey. You won't regret it. Today's guest is a left-handed pitcher who was born and raised in Florida. He attended the University of Virginia, where he threw 108 innings predominantly out of the bullpen over his 4 years. The Washington Nationals selected him in the 34th round of the 2017 draft after his junior year, but he elected not to sign. He returned to Virginia for his senior year, and the White Sox drafted him in the 10th round of the 2018 MLB draft. He worked his way up through their minor league system and made their opening day major league roster in 2022. In 2023, he started the year with the White Sox before being DFA'd and claimed by the Cincinnati Reds during spring training. He then had stints with the Brewers and Tigers before landing with the Astros. He made 5 key appearances down the stretch for Houston in their regular season push for the playoffs, pitching 6 and a third scoreless innings and allowing only 1 hit with 8 strikeouts and no walks. At the time of this recording, he's made 32 career appearances in the big leagues. Please welcome to the show, Bennett Sousa. What's up, Bennett? Thanks for doing this, man.
No problem. Glad to be here.
This is long overdue. I know you've been busting my chops about it, but my defense is that you always introduce the challengers before the champion.
I love it. That's it.
Um,
That's it.
so I think that's a good place to start this is you were actually a Cressey Sports Performance Florida guy before CSP Florida actually existed. So maybe give folks like the insights on your background and how you were originally introduced to us.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously Brian Kaplan was a big part in me, you know, knowing you and learning more about you and the Cressey gym in general. Um, and then, Cap, the story goes that Cap was emailing you over and over and over again back in the day. And he was training me doing your exercises. And then we went up to Mass And, I didn't really know what to expect going up there. I'd never done any legit sports training for baseball specifically. And when I went up there, I mean, it was obviously eye opening for me. And I realized that I got a lot of work to do if I want to, do this seriously. Um, but I think having Cap around was massive for me. I think Cap, like having that role model in my life, uh, kind of just guiding me in the right direction on which, the training side of things, the pitching side of things, and I think that'll go into some further discussion. Um, Kind of just having him as a role model, like I said, was huge for me in getting into the strength side of baseball.
Yeah, I mean your timing was perfect. And for those of you know, Brian Kaplan was our business partner. We started up Cressey Sports Performance Florida, and he's now the Major League assistant pitching coach with the Philadelphia Phillies. Like you got a big league pitching coach as your high school pitching coach. It was a remarkably like impactful experience.
Yeah, especially when I was going through it, training wasn't the same as it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, kids now are starting to specifically train for baseball at a much younger age, where back when I was going through it, it was kind of like everyone just played three sports and you just train by playing other sports. Um, and now it's a little bit different, obviously, but knowing the direction to go to and getting pointed into a great direction with you guys was huge for me at such a young age.
Yeah, I think that was a really beneficial experience. And I worked with obviously Matt Blake for an extended period of time, and Matt and
Yeah.
Cap and I were kind of throwing our ideas around. But it was really important for me as we look to do a location in another state to have someone where you could have that synergy, right? Where I could talk strength and conditioning, he could talk pitching. We obviously met in the middle on a lot of those things. How can we get this guy's body to move the way it needs to? And so you're kind of like you were like the initial subject, like you were the guinea pig.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm obviously super blessed, like you said. Like Brian Kaplan is a major league pitching coach now, and I worked with Matt Blake, who's also a major league pitching coach now. And you yourself, like, I had three guys in my corner that at the time we didn't know where they were going to be in the future. But looking back on it, I mean, these are three guys that are big in the sport, that are successful in the sport. And I was at such a young age with these role models. Like, I was obviously very blessed with that.
I think we were lucky too to have like athletes that recognized that we didn't have all the answers, but we were trying to ask a lot of the right questions and just have open-minded to it and all that. And
Right.
maybe leads to like one of the things I've always praised Cap about that I think he did awesome about is he was not afraid to be the bad guy in protecting a lot of the really good arms down here. Is if you're a good arm in Florida, and you were obviously a University of Virginia commit, and there are a bunch of other guys that kind of went through the same situations with everyone wants you to play for their team. And you kind of have to be public enemy number one by saying like, hey, we're not pitching this fall. We're focused on the long term. So you weren't exactly like a multi-sport athlete, but you did do a really good job to avoid the overuse issues so many Florida kids have had. So were there big discussions that you and Cap had, you and your parents had, hard and fast rules that you all really applied to make sure that you stayed on a good path?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember specifically that Cap never wanted me to throw in the fall. And I think that's kind of out of the window now. Got kids throw all year round in Florida. I was only pitching in the spring season for the high school team, and then over the summer, I would be on an innings limit, but I would pitch in the summer as well. And I think that really limited, the amount of stress on the arm year round. And kind of just, I had a season. Like, it wasn't a year long season. It was, this is your season where you're going to pitch. You can prepare for that season. And, I had some injuries in high school that we dealt with. Nothing surgical, obviously, but that's the hard part with high school is your routine is it's everywhere. You don't have a sound routine. And so when you go to these high school seasons and you're throwing once a week and all of a sudden you come from basketball practice and now you're playing baseball and your arms not, you get tendonitis, like you just don't throw enough where your arms built up enough. And I think Cap did a really good job of setting a baseline routine what you can do in high school, and it helped me out.
It's a big deal. We talk so much about routine for guys at all levels, but no one really emphasized how important what a competitive advantage it is to figure it out at a young age. Like if you can
Yeah,
lock it in at 16, 17 compared to 26, 27, it's a massive differentiator.
it's crazy. And still, like at 28 years old, like your routine is always changing.
Mhm.
I mean, you're trying to always refine your routine and make it better. And the earlier you can start building a routine, the better you are when you're 28, 30 years old at refining that routine, I think.
Yeah. And I'm really fascinated by your developmental path. Obviously had some high school success and went to UVA and you struggled a little bit, right? I mean, there were ups and
Yeah.
downs. You're on a really good college team where it's hard to crack and the innings and all that stuff. So you had a 5.5 ERA over 108 innings pitched in college. And, there was like some FIP and XFIP corrections on there, but it was roughly a 2-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. What's really fascinating is you went to minor league baseball, you threw 194 innings and you put up a 2.96 ERA and it's over, I think it's like 4.25 strikeouts per walk. So, it's fascinating to see guys. And Packy Naughton was another guy I talked to about this. You know,
Right.
why was it that you struggled more in college versus pro ball? Were you a different guy in pro ball? Was it just one of those things where it was happenstance, a small sample size? What do you think it was in hindsight?
I think, well, I think there's a lot of things into it, but to start, I think that when you get to college from high school, you go from this guy that, you're the man in high school. And you get to college, especially if you go to a good program like Virginia, and you're now a small fish and like you have to break through, and everything can be overwhelming at first. You have your new coaches, new teammates, new school. The schoolwork is, you got to
Yeah.
deal with that too.
Worst
And it's
worst
kind of
winter
like,
you'll ever see as a Jupiter
yeah,
guy.
and now you're pitching in the cold too.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of different factors that come into it. And it took me a while to, way longer than I was expecting to kind of adjust to that new scenery and new baseball, really. Um, but I think also, I lost a lot of confidence in my first 2 years at Virginia. I wasn't throwing that much, and when I did, I wasn't throwing well. I was learning, you know, new pitches, new ways to throw, new mechanics, all this stuff, and it got very overwhelming. And in hindsight, instead of fighting it, I probably should have just, accepted it sooner, and maybe things would have changed, but quicker. Um, but I lost confidence, and then as the seasons got on at UVA, I started to gain confidence again a little bit. And then once I got to pro ball, you know, I figured I got nothing to lose at this point. Like just play loose and have fun, and wherever the chips fall, they fall. And I had a lot of success in pro ball, and I kind of just rode that confidence till today. I mean, that's really, I mean, from talking to pitchers, like confidence is such a big thing in pitching.
Yeah.
Like, you can have good stuff. I've seen guys with great stuff that get rocked around the yard. I've seen guys with bad stuff that pitch elite, and it's just the way they act on the mound, the way they compete. I think it's a big, big thing in pitching.
Mhm.
And when you get that, your mojo back, your swagger back, in pitching, it really does help you a lot.
I love that. I think the other thing no one talks about in college is, every guy on that UVA team was the best player in the history of their school, right? Like it's a
Right.
big deal. And you go there and as a pitcher, like you started, once a week all throughout high school, you were the dude. And you go there and you don't really know who's going to be the starter, who's going to be the reliever. Everybody's good. For you predominantly relieve, but there's no telling, hey, you arrive and you learn a good changeup. All of a sudden you're a 3-pitch guy instead of a 2-pitch guy. So I'm sure there's a kind of an initial stage where it's just like figuring out who you're going to be. Was there some clarity in like going to pro ball and them saying, you're going to relieve, this is who you are, this is what you're going to do?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of funny. Like when I got to college, I was so oblivious to how college baseball even worked. Like I didn't know like the season 52 games. Like I was dumb about this, like everything about college baseball. I had no idea. And I went in there thinking, oh, I'm gonna be a starter and I'm just gonna keep starting for the rest of my career. Like I didn't even think about relieving. I didn't even, because in high school baseball, the best pitcher pitches and the second best pitcher comes in and he finishes the game,
Yep.
and that's how it goes. So in college, I didn't even know what relieving was. And I had to adjust to being a reliever then.
Mhm.
But in pro ball, I just accepted I'm going to be a reliever for the rest of my career. And, here's what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I think that really, like you said, that was really refreshing and kind of just it eases your mind, and this is who you are. And once you realize who you are as a pitcher, I think that really helps you, dominate the more you go.
We interrupt this podcast with a quick reminder that this episode is brought to you by AG1. It's an NSF certified all in one superfood supplement that features 75 whole food sourced ingredients designed to support your body's nutritional needs. I use this product daily myself, and a ton of our athletes do as well. Head to drinkag1.com/Cressey and claim my special offer of 10 free travel packets with your first purchase. AG1 gives you peace of mind that you're covering all your nutritional bases. Again, that's drinkag1.com/Cressey, Cressey, and you'll get that special offer. What was the hardest aspect of the adjustment? I mean, there'll be obviously a conversation we can have later about doing it back to back and stuff like that you might
Right.
not do in college. But what was it that for you was so challenging about going from starting to relieve when you got to college?
I mean, I'm going to keep saying it. Your routine as a reliever is completely different as a starter. I mean, you have to be, yeah, it has to change as a reliever. Like, you have to be prepared for anything. Any inning you're going to come in, you can't have this long routine. You have to be ready to get on a fly. Hey, you're in next inning, go. And I think once you start refining that routine as a reliever, you start feeling what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And we can talk more about that later, because I mean, it's still changing for me every season.
Mm-hmm. When you went to pro ball, it was interesting. Your highest average velo at UVA was 91.2, which is, obviously 4 games a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe a midweek game. And now it's consistently over 94. You're touching 96, 97. For you, what was the biggest difference, like in making that big velocity surge?
I mean, I think, so here's a little plug for you. I think obviously working out at Cressey has helped me understand my body more. But also just this timing up your body, I think is huge. Just finding what works for you. You see all these guys that get big velo spikes when they get to pro ball, and it's like, well, yeah, they're throwing more, they're doing pitching more, like they're finding out what works for them more. And I think that was big for me, like just going from throwing like 4 days a week, even in catch play, to now 7 days a week. You just feel your body out way more. What works for you, and I think that helps increase velo too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're interesting. You're 6'3", right? You're,
Yeah.
you're kind of like right on that sweet spot. And I was just looking at my notes. You came back, you were 213. I've seen 6'3" guys that feel amazing at 205, like they're athletic. And I've seen guys that carried 235 and felt amazing. Like, you're obviously kind of somewhere in the middle, like 213 to 220, give or take. Like, was
Right.
there like kind of a feeling out, like, what's the best weight for me? Like, hey, I had to get too heavy. Hey, I'm too light. Like, where did that kind of settle? And what was maybe the timeline of when you left high school versus now?
I think where I'm at now, the 213 to 220 range is like where I feel my best. I've been down to 205 before, and I feel good, but I don't feel as strong when I'm that 205 weight. And then I've been 225 before too, and I feel like I'm too sluggish, too big. Um, it's kind of like it goes, just as your career progresses, finding that honey hole on where you feel physically the best. I think is big weight wise. But I know I ended last year at 207, and I felt really good, but I felt like I could be more durable at 215 to 220 range.
Right on. Speaking of durability, you were fortunate or unfortunate, depending how you look at it, to see several organizations this year. You started Chicago, we're in Milwaukee, Detroit, and you finished the year in Houston. And it was on a great note. You threw in some really high leverage situations for them down the stretch. And what does a year like this teach you when you're on a roster, off a roster, and just going into new clubhouses? Like, were there certain lessons that you took away from each of the stops along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this year obviously was crazy. 5 different teams was not in the plan,
I didn't even
but
mention which was the one I left out. I'm forgetting.
the red, where you
The
said White
Reds.
Sox to start, yeah,
Yeah,
then Reds.
I forgot the Reds. My bad.
Um, no, there was a lot of lessons learned. I met a lot of great guys, obviously, just being from every organization. But I think it really opened my eyes, and this is a business, what we're playing. And like, it can change anytime, and not to put pressure on yourself because you'll never play well if there's that much pressure, but just, you know, doing, I don't want to say doing, like kind of just every organization is different, and there's going to be a lot of people telling you different things, and kind of just sticking to what you've trained for and you've took in the off season and bring it to the season. um I think that it helps you when you're a reliever that's just, bouncing around place to place, with no real structure. Like, you have to create the structure on yourself. I was very fortunate to end with the Astros. They've obviously put me in a great spot, and I'm excited for next year with them. But that being said, like, you have to keep performing at a high level if you want to stay with one team. I mean, that's for anybody, though.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it's like a reminder to be your own best coach, just because you don't know where you're going
Yes.
to be tomorrow. And if you're too reliant on one person, you're potentially more likely to just get pulled in the wrong direction.
I think the biggest takeaway too from this past year was that you can't worry about anything else. You're either going to pitch well and you're going to stay with that team, or you're not going to pitch well and, there might be another opportunity somewhere else. And instead of putting so much pressure on myself, being like, I don't know where I'm going to be next, I honestly, it came to a point where I kind of just, I don't want to say gave up, but I was just like, I don't care anymore. Whatever happens, happens. And I think that honestly made me play way better because I stopped caring about where I was going to be. If you're going to get options, stay up to the big leagues. I didn't care anymore. Went through it way too much where I was just like, whatever.
I feel like I've talked to several guys over the years that, they starting pitchers are like, it doesn't matter how well I throw, I could get optioned right after this game. I could throw a no-hitter
Yeah.
tonight and I'm still going to AAA tomorrow. And the second they stop worrying about that and just focus on the task at hand, everything kind of seems to take care of itself much better.
And it's way easier said than done, obviously. Like, you have to, I feel like like for me, I had to get DFA 4 times and claim 5 in order to finally be like, I don't care. Like, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go pitch, and whatever happens, happens.
Absolutely. Maybe bouncing back to 2022, you had a lot of workload in the White Sox bullpen early in 2022, really kind of like started the season all the way up into really early June. And we both know that working out of a big league bullpen is high pressure and hard on the body, but particularly with the volume that you saw early in the season, were there things that you learned in the moment, whether it was your own experiences or talking with teammates that were up there, that helped you to basically get through that year and really take a big step forward over the course of that time?
Yeah. I mean, when I first got to the big leagues last year or in 2022, I didn't know what to expect. I had this long routine, before the game that I would do before catch play. I would do it, and then, you feel like you can do anything in the big leagues for about 3 weeks, and then you realize, holy crap, like, we're playing it's different than the minor leagues. You're playing every day, and you got to bring it every day as a reliever, especially. Um, and it ends up being, mentally and physically, it ends up being a lot.
Yeah.
And I would watch. I was lucky because I had a veteran bullpen with the White Sox, and I'd watch these relievers, and they're all like, they're very relaxed. They don't have these long routines. It's just very like, they get in what they need to get done before the game, and then they go out there and pitch. And as I kept watching them, it's almost like I felt like I was doing too much. And it ended up, I think, backfiring on me, obviously, because I was drained by the time, halfway May came around. So I think that it's important. And now I've learned, after watching these veteran guys, even with the Astros too, like, get what you need to get done, but you don't need to do a million different things to be at your 100% game time. A lot of adrenaline, a lot of, the moment of the game is going to take over in your body, and you're going to be prepared for what you need to get 3 outs. And I think that's important takeaway from that 2022 season for me.
Yeah. You hinted at it, like, I think the casual person can appreciate like there was in high school and college, or college and minor league ball. I think the one between the minor leagues and the big leagues is a harder one to appreciate, right? Yeah, minor leaguers always get Mondays off, but most big leaguers are getting, 3, maybe 4 days off per month anyway.
Right.
And but big leaguers tend to travel better, right? They stay in nicer hotels, the food is better. So I think that'll grasp what, in your opinion, is the difference between being in AAA versus being in the big leagues in terms of just the overall stress on your body.
Well, I think the you can't prepare, especially nowadays in the minor leagues as a reliever. It is, I don't want to say it's easy, but you kind of know when you're going to throw in the minor
Manageable.
leagues.
Yeah.
It's very, yes, it's very like, you're slotted out kind of when you're going to throw. You're going to throw 2, maybe 3 times a week. Like that
Rarely
step
back
to
to
the
back.
big league,
Yeah.
right? You rarely go back to back in the minor leagues. Like that step to the big leagues from AAA as a reliever is the biggest step you're going to take in any of the progressions of
Yeah.
of baseball. And I think that's why some guys struggle at first as relievers coming up to the big leagues, because they're not prepared to throw the amount that they're going to throw. And even like some days, like you have a back to back, and then you're like, oh, I might be off, and then can you get me an out today?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I got to be ready today too. Like you have to, and that's what goes back to the last thing is like, you just have to come to work every day thinking that you're going to pitch and preparing like you're going to pitch and being mentally ready to compete every day. I mean, it's you're going to a mental war zone every season. I mean, it really is. And you have to be prepared for that.
What's the advice you would give to other relievers? Like if you got a buddy, that you see in the gym that's going to pitch out of a high leverage spot in a major league bullpen this year, like what's the number one tip that you give to them to kind of understand, how to prepare for it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to keep saying your routine, you have to have a good routine. If you don't have a routine, I think you're going to be lost, because you're not going to have good outings every time. And what do you fall back on when you have a bad outing? It's not go make 100 mechanical changes. It's just, hey, I had a bad day. Let me do the same thing I did the day before. And it's baseball.
Yeah.
Things are going to, come around your way. I think that's big. As a reliever, like you're the field goal kicker. No one knows who you really are, but if you mess up, people are going to know who you are. And you kind of have to deal with that and understand that. And you can't let it beat you up when you have a bad outing. And I think it's difficult to do, but the best ones that I've come across, when they have a bad outing, the next outing, they're back to, being who they are.
Absolutely. What's next for you? Like, how do you feel like you can continue to refine, improve, and, obviously be a regular big leaguer?
Yeah, I think, this last year I developed the sinker 2-seamer that I think is really going to help me out a lot with lefties at the big league level. But for me, it's just being consistent. Every time I've been consistent, I've been really good. And I think that just, over the course of the year, really taking pride in like how I treat my body and, the things I've been doing to kind of prepare for a 60+ appearance season, will help me in the next step. I know I have the stuff to compete at the big league level. It's just being consistent enough every time I go out there to deliver that stuff.
Yeah. I think, you also, from my perspective, like the nutrition, you've always been good with it. I think now you're great
Yeah.
with it. Like it's
Yeah.
a extra special focus that I think you've made this year that'll be a big difference for you.
I mean, the older, like now I'm realizing the older you get, like you just don't, and I'm only 28, but still like you feel things that you didn't feel at 24, 23 years old. And I think the nutrition side of things will definitely help me out this next year.
Right on. All right. We always start to wrap up with a lightning round. So these are
Yeah.
short, you can be as elaborate as you want in the responses, but who do you like to watch pitch?
Whew. I like, when I watch baseball, like when I tune in, obviously I like to watch any lefty reliever. But the guy that I will look up and watch some of his stuff on YouTube is another Cressey guy, Brad Hand, just because he's a lefty reliever, one of the best, nasty slider. I think I have a nasty slider. So like I like to kind of look at his and see things like that. But obviously he's had a great career. So someone I like to watch.
Solid one. Maybe building on that, who's someone that you've learned from at the gym, and what did you learn from them?
I mean, I think that's the special thing about Cressey is there's so many guys there that, you know, have success and that are in the same boat as you that you can just kind of pick their brains and talk to a lot. Um, I don't know anything specifically off the top of my head, but just, you know, us guys, we always talk every day, just kind of, you know, little things that you might pick up here and there. And they watch your bullpens, you know, that you're working out together. I think that's just a great environment to be around.
Yeah, I was cracking up yesterday. Like it was really quiet in the gym, like earlier in the day, to the point that I was
Yeah.
like asking, like, what's going on? Like, did the guys have like a charity golf outing or something like that? And it was like, no, everybody, it was like our first big bullpen day, and there were a bunch of guys literally just standing around watching, like their
Yeah,
training partners throwing stuff. It's a cool like thing that happened very accidentally, but I think it's nurtured the environment a lot.
absolutely. I think it's great.
What are some of the qualities of the best coaches that you've had in your career? Who have been the most impactful for you?
I think like a best coach and best managers are just guys that know how to communicate the best to their players. Like I think the older you get, like the more just honest you want a manager and coach. Um, it doesn't need to be somebody that, you know, is a rah guy or screams at you or anything like that. It's just someone that knows how to talk to you and deliver the message in the best way. Like I remember this past season when I was rehabbing in Arizona, like the rehab guy for the Brewers, he gave me a couple cues that really, like, it was very kindergarten honestly type stuff, but it worked for me and it helped me out the rest of the way. It helped me with the Astros, which is kind of funny. But you know, just little things like that. Guys that know how to communicate and deliver messages, I think, is makes a great coach.
It's a big deal. What about advice for a teenage Bennett Sousa?
Oh God. I mean, there's so much, but I think like the biggest one is just, you know, it don't stress out about the little things. It's gonna, like, you work hard enough, it's gonna work out. Like things are going to go your way at some point. And I think that's just important to stay on path, don't stress, keep working hard. Um, and that's it.
Love it, man. Well, folks can find you on social media. It's bsousa11 on Instagram and Bennett Sousa on Twitter. This was awesome, man. It was long overdue. So thank you very much for taking the time. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. I
Right on,
appreciate it,
man.
man.
We'll see you in the morning. Appreciate you doing this.
All right, sounds good. See you tomorrow.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. We really appreciate you carving out some time in your schedule to listen, not just to this episode, but also to some of the episodes from our archives. If you enjoy what you heard, we'd love it if you'd share it with friends, colleagues, and teammates, as well as leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks again for your time.